All right, guys, we're back. We are finally back. Thank you guys all for joining us today on this late night Tuesday live stream. I gotta say, I'm pumped. I'm so glad to be back here. I know we've been off for a couple weeks now, and as many of you guys know, that is because we have been away. We've been out of the country for a little bit. We've been up in New York. We've been to Bristol. We've been to Canada. We've been all over the place, and we've been trying to keep you guys updated as much as possible. We are back now, and we are here to stay for the remainder of the summer and, of course, the remainder of the college football season. So I can already see we've got a couple guys in the chat. George, good to see you. Craig Pina, Emperor of Rome, good to see you. Haven't heard from you in a while, but of course, one of the most frequent and most reliable guys to be here on the live streams and our videos. So good to have you. And good to see you here in the stream. Ryan Mel, good to see you. Cyclone Mitch, another one of our more reliable and frequent viewers. Good to see you, man. Glad to have you here with us on this Tuesday night, as well as everybody else that comes through here in a few minutes. Emperor Rome, like I said, pumped to see you, man. Glad to have you back. John Hopkins, good to see you. And yeah, we'll go ahead and put that out there right now. You're already ready for predictions. So am I. You have no idea. A week from Thursday, guys, June 27th, we start predictions. And it might not be starting with the SEC. We might be switching things up a little bit, but we will be back. Predictions will be back, and of course, that's one of our favorite times of the year, and that's when we get so much discussion. Now, one thing I've noticed, though, guys, is we have had so much traction lately with these live streams, so much from you guys. If we didn't get this much support and this much discussion in the live streams, I probably wouldn't do them as frequently. So even though our main focus will be on predictions starting next Thursday, I'm going to try to sprinkle in some live streams in there as well. We can talk about the predictions that we've made. We can talk about the upcoming teams and everything like that. So I'm definitely going to keep that on tap and keep that coming, even though our main focus will be shifting a little bit. So, but once again, we are excited to be back. I know it's been a couple of weeks, but like I said, if you watched our live stream before we left, you knew that was coming. But the overwhelming support we have had from you guys over these past couple of weeks has been unbelievable. So we appreciate that. Cyclone Mitch, and like I said, we'll dive into some content here. Bring your questions and discussions. I've got some stuff right here in front of me that we're going to be talking about if we don't get much, but usually the comments and usually the chat is what fuels these streams. But Illinois making some big time moves, and you're right, big time moves in the sense of the transfer portal. Illinois, trying their best to get competitive in the Big Ten this season under Lovie Smith. I think he's entering year 3, year 4 with the Fighting Illini, and the problem is, Illinois Illinois and Rutgers, unfortunately, have been the bottom dwellers of the Big Ten for the past couple years. But Lovie Smith was a guy that I talk about all the time, how excited I am and how much promise I think a guy with NFL experience has. And I thought that would transition a little quicker in the college ranks, but maybe going to a school like Illinois that has not been known for being a powerhouse has benefited him. But this is the year that he needs to break through. This is the year that he has to break through with the pieces that he is getting through the transfer portal for the people that are coming back, because they had a young team last year. This is the year that Lovie Smith and Illinois have to get at least, I think, 5 wins. Bowl eligibility would be huge for Fighting Illini fans and for that program. They haven't been to a bowl, I think, since 2012, 2013, if I'm not mistaken. So bowl eligibility would be huge. But I think 5 wins needs to be good enough. Anything less than that, Lovie Smith could be on his way out, which would be unfortunate. I think there's promise there, as we see here. But he's running out of time, and I know they're running out of patience. Yeah, Chris Smith... can't believe I made it on SportsCenter. Yeah, I mean, we can talk about that for a second. The people I've talked to about that, guys, let me tell you, I think they started to get tired of it a little bit. Not that I'm talking all the time, but, that was a very big moment. That was a big, opportunity there. Comic Dude 45, what's going on, man? Glad to have you, man. Another one of our key moderators, along with Emperor of Rome, but also one of our most frequent and reliable fans. So I do appreciate of that, of course, and you coming onto the stream. But Chris, the trip to SportsCenter, man, I tell you what, yeah, I still can't believe it either. I'm still in shock and awe. I still continue to watch the videos of it, so we're doing it, and then the next day, ESPN and SportsCenter send me personally through my email that clip with the highlight, the one that you guys saw on YouTube. They sent that to me. Obviously, I didn't have the day of. But it was unbelievable. It was an unbelievable experience. Elle Duncan, guys, now one of my favorite sports anchors. I was a fan of hers before, but it was just amazing. I got to say how nice everybody was at that studio at Bristol, Connecticut. I think a lot of people are under the impression sometimes corporate or the big dogs, sometimes they put on a good face on TV or maybe behind the scenes, make it look like a nice environment, but really in real life they're not. That wasn't the case there. I mean, Jay Harris, when I sat down and talked with him for a while, unbelievable advice that he was able to give me. He had watched the channel, which was unbelievable that he had taken the time to do that and took the time to sit down and discuss the channel with me to make some improvements and everything like that. So that was unbelievable. And then sitting down with David Lloyd and Elle Duncan and all the staff to arrange that was unbelievable. And of course, she's probably not going to watch this. She's an extremely busy person, but our good friend Wanda Young, none of that would have been possible without her. So I can't thank her enough. I thank her profusely for taking the time to arrange all of that and to have us there, one of the big dogs up at ESPN. So, yeah, it was an unbelievable experience. I'm glad I was able to share that with you guys. I was afraid for copyright reasons that we weren't going to be able to get that out there, and it was going to be my word versus, I guess, what y'all believe. But, I'm glad we were able to put that out there for you guys to see. So, but yeah, it was pretty crazy. And I wish y'all had seen it too, Cyclone Mitch. But like I said, I'm glad I was able to send it out here on YouTube so you guys were able to see it. It was something that I'm not going to forget anytime soon. And hopefully, like I said in the video, it will not be the last time I'm sitting at that desk. Mike Myrick, good to see you, man. You've been commenting on the videos lately, so I appreciate that. But like I said, we are glad to be back. So I'm glad to be back. Glad to be back in contact with you guys, chatting it up on the live streams. One of my favorite things to do, period. That's one of my has become. I wish I had been doing these live streams a long time ago. I wish I started this a lot earlier because I'm loving them. So thank you for joining the chat. Go Knowles, as always. Trey Drew, good to have you, man. Doing pretty good. Glad to be back, like I said. Hope you're doing well. But like I said, we are back now, and we will be back for the remainder, pretty much, of the year. You don't have to worry about that. Lane White, good to have you. Taylor Lewis, thoughts on Geoff Collins taking over the reins at Georgia Tech and switching from the option? So that's definitely a big-time discussion there. It's a change. It's a new era. Paul Johnson did so much at Georgia Tech with that option. And the funny thing to me was everybody knew that the schools because Paul Johnson used to be at Navy, and Navy runs the option. Army, very similar in regards to the offense. And then Paul Johnson comes from Navy to Georgia Tech, implements the same thing. And everybody knows what Navy, Army, and Georgia Tech were going to run. Yet they still couldn't stop it. Some teams could, like we saw Minnesota really shut down the option in that bowl game. But most times they still couldn't figure out how to stop it, even though they knew it was coming. That was the beauty of the option. I think Geoff Collins and Georgia Tech can be a bowl-eligible team. And I think this is going to be something that not only does Georgia Tech have to adjust to, but the rest of the ACC has to adjust to, Taylor, because you look at it, the ACC for the past how many years Paul Johnson was there, I think it's been over 10 years, has known what Georgia Tech's going to run. That's how they prep. Georgia Tech's going to run the option. Yeah, you have to wait for that little play action pass or wait for them to maybe take a shot deep because you don't expect them to pass. And now they're going to take away from the option and focus a little more going through the air. I mean, we saw, if you've watched some of the tape of Georgia Tech's practices, I don't know if you have, they were taking snaps out of the shotgun. And that was pretty unbelievable. That's something that we rarely saw, if any, under Paul Johnson. So I think it's going to be a major adjustment. The problem is coaches that come in with players that were recruited under Paul Johnson, players that will remain there that maybe played last year, maybe aren't well suited for this type of offense that Geoff Collins is trying to implement. So we talk all the time that coaches maybe need 3-4 years to get their players in that are going to fit their system. I think, like I said, Georgia Tech has the chance to be bowl eligible this year, but nothing more than that in year one of this new era. But it's going to be very interesting. Unfortunately for them, Clemson. And so that's a horrible, horrible way to kick things off as a new head coach, implementing a brand new offense and everything like that. Or it could be a phenomenal welcome, and maybe they somehow upset Clemson, and the Geoff Collins era at Georgia Tech kicks off with a bang, and people are going to be talking about Georgia Tech as potentially winning the ACC. I highly doubt that, but there's pros and cons to opening up against the reigning national champs, but I'm thinking right now probably some more cons than pros. So Eli Arbeza, good to have you back, man. Always good to have you in the chat. Pretty much reiterating what I said here, having some serious growing pains, but they'll be good in the long run. Lane White, okay, this first season, then it will get better. Right, so I'm thinking it's going to be like I said, bowl eligibility, maybe 6 wins, maybe 7 wins, and they continue to get better from there. Georgia Tech was one of those teams under Paul Johnson, kind of did the same thing. They won consistently, I would say 7 or 8 games, but every now and then they could break through and get that 10-win mark, the 11-win mark. They made that appearance in the Orange Bowl just a few years ago, facing off against Dak Prescott and Mississippi State. ACC championship appearances. So they had the talent to do that, and they do that every now and then. But I don't think that's going to happen for this year, maybe even next year. Oh, so Lane White, you went to the Georgia Tech spring game. The players now have the ability to run the offense. So exactly, yeah. So I kind of reiterate what you were saying. You're reiterating what I'm saying. And for someone that was actually at the Georgia Tech spring game, getting a better look than I have, just seeing bits and pieces of their practices, a spring game, a much better opportunity to see the type of offense and style that Collins is going to bring to Georgia Tech. So it is good that the players have that little bit of freedom to run that offense. I think the quarterback's going to have a little bit more of freedom to call plays up at the line of scrimmage. You're right. The spring game doesn't mean that much. I've seen hundreds of spring games, guys, over the course of the years, and everybody's like, "Oh, the offense looked great," or "The defense looked great." The way I look at it sometimes, if your offense looks really good and you're going up against your first team defense, then that's not good. It's your defense looks bad. Or if your defense looks great against your first team offense, maybe your offense is going to struggle. Yeah, spring game, dude, I just saw it, can be fool's gold. Sometimes players leave or fans leave thinking our team looks phenomenal. The quarterback looked great if it's a new quarterback, everything like that. But it doesn't mean anything. Half the time it doesn't mean anything. So what matters is when they play a team that's not themselves, when they're able to hit somebody else that's not their teammate. That's when you really start to see it. Taylor, another good point. Collins has a 7-year deal. Great recruiting classes coming in. So around year 3 or year 4, we'll start to see some serious stuff. And that's obviously the key. That's what we always say is year 3, year 4, you would hope to see some major strides from a new head coach. Spring games don't mean that much. Gerald Burt, I haven't seen you before, man, but glad to have you on here. If you are subscribed, great, thank you. If you're not, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, man. We're trying to build up this subscriber count here, trying to get to 2,000. We've been kind of stagnant for a little while, but glad to have you guys. To answer your question, anything on Kentucky Wildcats football, I'll say this, Gerald. There have been some analysts out there, some experts that if they want to call themselves that do not have Kentucky making the postseason. Let's just let that think in. A 10-win Kentucky team last year that won the Citrus Bowl over Penn State. Some of these people don't have Kentucky making a bowl game this year. And if that's the case for some people, for some of these analysts, then I think they need to lose their job. And I hate to say that, but I know Kentucky lost Benny Snell, their workhorse running back. I know that. I know they lost Josh Allen, one of the biggest defensive stars, not just obviously at Kentucky, but in the SEC. And that showed because he was a very high draft pick in this past NFL draft. The thing is, though, Terry Wilson at quarterback doesn't get enough credit. I will say that. They don't rank him high in the SEC quarterback rankings, which compared to the likes of Tagovailoa, Fromm, Joe Burrow, Kellen Mond, yeah, he's not up there as one of the elite, but he's not bad either. So they've got a returning quarterback, and they've got momentum. The way they ended last year, the season they had last year, it's unbelievable. So there are some big shoes to fill, without a doubt. There's no doubt they have some big shoes to fill, and I'm going to bring this back up here. But the overlying thing is they should get back to a bowl game. If Mark Stoops is unable to get them bowling, then as somebody just said a second ago, I can't see who it was. Who was it last year? Eli. Then it may have been a fluke. If they were unable to get to a bowl game this year, if Mark Stoops was unable to do that, maybe last year was a fluke. But I don't think that's the case. He hit his stride last year after being there for over 4 years. And I think they get to another bowl game this season. But I do not think they're going to have a season like they had last year where they win 10 games and are up until November or in the hunt for an SEC East title. They beat Florida last year. That was great. That was in the swamp. So that's phenomenal. They get to host them at Kentucky this year. But Florida's got revenge on their mind, and they're going to be much better. So you've got Georgia, you got Florida, you got an up-and-coming Tennessee team, you've got a South Carolina team that has one of the most brutal schedules in the entire country, but does have talent. So, and a Missouri team now that has Kelly Bryant at quarterback and has seemingly seemed to get better under Barry Odom. And now with a very veteran quarterback who played at Clemson, you're looking at a very tough SEC East this season. So I don't think Kentucky's going to have as much success as they had last year, but will go bowling. I would be shocked if they weren't able to do that. So we got a little comments here about spring games, NFL preseason, stuff like that. Let's see what else. George Stice, good to have you, man. I appreciate that comment about ESPN. We just started talking about that a second ago. And like I said, it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity at that point. Hopefully we'll get there farther down the road. Like I said, it won't be our last time there. But it was phenomenal considering it was sprung on me. I had no idea it was going to happen. So I appreciate that. And it's good, and it's glad to have you back. I'm glad to have you back, George. It's nice to be back and nice to have some of our fellow followers and college football fans around here. And Street Fair, real quick, thank you for the donation, man, for the super chat. And I appreciate the comment. Congrats on the ESPN appearance. Huge demand. So I appreciate that a lot. Let me tell you guys, every little bit here with the super chat, it counts. Every single bit. I don't care how much it is. It means a lot, and it goes a long way. So thank you so much for that. And thank you very much for the kind words in the comments, guys. And if you haven't checked out our website yet, I'll put that little shameless plug before we keep talking about some of these comments here. I'll try to get to all of them as much as I can. We just launched our website today. We actually just posted a video about it today. TheGridironExpert.com. Plenty of more college football content, news, analysis there some of which you won't even get here. But I want to make a point, since we were talking about how grateful I am for you guys. There's a little tab there. There's a little slideshow goes through talking about some of the stuff we do here. There's a tab dedicated to you guys, the fans. Unfortunately, I wanted to try to make a page, and I might be able to do that, where I can post comments from you guys that means so much to me and have thrived this channel. Because without you guys, without those comments, we probably wouldn't be here. But there's a whole slide that thanks you guys, the fans, for everything that you have done over these past 3 years now. We're entering year 3. And like I said, without you guys, it's not possible. It's just simply not possible. So we had that slide dedicated there solely for you guys, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. So thank you for the donations, the super chats, the comments, the views, the subscriptions, everything. It means a lot, and like I said, it couldn't be possible without you guys. But in the meantime, go check out thegridironexpert.com. Look at it for yourself. Tell me what you think. Emails there. We got a newsletter that we'll be doing during the season. And, of course, our expert picks. I know some people have already signed up for that because I'm getting the alerts for it. But over 150 spread picks for one fee. And if you ask me, it's very minimal, very low, very doable. And I wanted to make sure of that. Some people jack up the prices, and we don't want to do that. So go check it out for yourself. Subscribe to it. Sign up for our expert picks, or just sign up for the newsletter that we will be doing during the season. But every little bit helps. And that's my shameless plug for that. There's a video on it on the channel if you want to go check it out for a little more detail, but I just wanted to throw that out there. So thank you guys for everything else. Looking through the comments here. Trey Drew, the year 3 template is part of the reason why people are so high on my Gophers. So Trey, of course, being a Minnesota fan. And Trey, we know PJ Fleck's entering year 3. And kind of like Kentucky, when I was talking about momentum, is coming into this year on a high. Getting to a bowl game in year 2 under PJ Fleck, winning that bowl game in dominant fashion over a team we were just talking about in Georgia Tech, ruining Paul Johnson's final game there. And Minnesota is bringing back a lot of players this season. Let's keep that in mind. So not only is he hitting year 3, where coaches are supposed to start hitting their stride, but Minnesota is going to have a very veteran team in 2019. Some are considering them a dark horse contender in the Big Ten and may make that Big Ten championship game. I don't know if I'm going to go that far, but this is a Minnesota team that I could see potentially winning 8 games, maybe 9. And if it works out, as Eli just said a second ago, that Minnesota has a favorable schedule, although they did lose badly to a mediocre Maryland team. last year, of course. So, I think the pressure is on for PJ Fleck for the schedule to line up the way it did, for the people to come back the way they did, to have this veteran type of team. They have to seize the opportunity. This would be a wonderful opportunity for PJ Fleck to make some huge strides, much like he has done everywhere he's stopped during his coaching career. And as we all know, the phenomenal job he did at Western Michigan a few years ago that landed him this Minnesota job. So, Eli, you got Iowa winning the Big Ten West. That division, wide open, in my opinion. Actually, I think I said this before on our previous live stream, that I think the entire Big Ten's open, period. Everybody's super high on Michigan this season, and they are going to be one of the bigger threats in the Big Ten, I have no doubt. But Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State, those are your top four, I think, out of the East that could really pose a threat. And some people may say, well, hold on, pump the brakes. Why Michigan State? Well, like I said, you never want to doubt a Mark D'Antonio team. Last year was a major disappointment, but I'm still keeping them in the loop. Because all it takes is a couple upsets to pull off a win over Penn State, to pull off a win over their rival in Michigan. It's possible. So that's wide open. Then you got the West. You got teams like Iowa. You've got teams like Northwestern and Purdue and Nebraska and Minnesota that could very well make a run to the Big Ten title game. I think the winner of the Big Ten will come from the East. And I think if the Big Ten has any chance of making the college football playoff, that team will also come from the East. And I think their top two chances to do that are Ohio State and Michigan, as it has been for the past few years. Penn State's been in the mix, but they always choke somewhere down the road to a team maybe they shouldn't. But, I think we'll play that big year, but I think that the Big Ten champion will more than likely come out of the East, and if they want to get into the playoff, that team will come out of the East as well. Ryan Mel, it's not that I'm not high on Wisconsin. It's not that I left Wisconsin out of that mix when we were talking about the Western Division, but right now Wisconsin has a scenario that they've got to figure out with a comic dude. I love that. Rutgers versus Illinois in Indianapolis. Now, wouldn't that be something? Imagine putting a bet down on that and how much money you get on them. But Wisconsin's got a quarterback issue that they've got to figure out, who they're going to start at quarterback. Now, they still have Jonathan Taylor at running back. And when you have a solid running back running behind an offensive line that is 9 times out of 10 very solid at Wisconsin, you're going to be a threat. And I think Wisconsin would have looked a lot better and done a lot better had they not lost to BYU last year. That loss to BYU hurt that team in many ways that a lot of people just won't understand and won't know. They started off the season at number 4, and one loss to BYU, non-conference, didn't end necessarily their playoff hopes, didn't end necessarily their Big Ten title hopes because it was non-conference, but that just hurt them so bad, especially with that loss coming at Wisconsin. So they've got a lot to figure out. But the defense is usually solid at Wisconsin, so if they can find a competent quarterback, a quarterback that is able to play better than Alex Hornibrook, who is now transferred to Florida State, then you've got a Wisconsin team that maybe will kind of rise back out of the ashes from a team that was disappointed last year, went west, and maybe be able to compete against a Michigan, Ohio State, or somebody like that in the Big Ten title game. But I'm not crazy high on them like I've been the past 2 years, where I thought they would win 11 or 12 games. See what else we got here. Yeah, see, I'm going all the way back up to the top now. Raptors in 6, yes, Ryan. So that was, for those of you that don't know, that was a pick I made on SportsCenter, picking the Raptors in 6 games, and that ended up coming to fruition. It ended up working out very well for me. Raptors clinching their first title, and I saw Emperor of Rome giving the St. Louis Blues and the Toronto Raptors a little bit of a shout out there. The Blues, of course, winning the Stanley Cup, Raptors winning the NBA Finals, both in phenomenal series, if you ask me. The Blues taking the Bruins all the way to 7 games, Raptors winning in 6. Had some classic games in there. They lost game 5 by 1 point. And game 6 was extremely close. I mean, the Warriors had a chance to win that game. The Raptors nearly threw it away, literally. Got cornered, passed it out of bounds, or got rid of it and ended up going out of bounds. Warriors had a chance, and Steph Curry. One thing I will say about Steph Curry before I keep going down these comments is he's a heck of a three-point shooter. One of the best, I think, in history when it comes to three-point shooting. But when's the last time that we've seen Steph Curry really come through clutch, like in the final seconds with a three-pointer? I mean, he's done it, but like when it matters most. He missed and look, I couldn't do it. The pressure of making a game-winning shot with the lights on you and the crowd and everything riding on the line is tough. So I'm not criticizing him because I know I probably couldn't do that. But, I look back at Game 7 of the, 2016 NBA Finals, 2017, when they lost to the Cavs 3-1, missed a couple three-pointers that could have tied or taken the lead against the Cavs down the stretch to keep him in the game. Missed those. Couldn't hit one to save his life. Then Game 6, he gets the ball, had a great look to take the lead and maybe try to force Game 7, and he missed it. But nonetheless, congratulations to the Raptors and Kawhi Leonard and Nick Nurse. First year head coach with the Raptors, wins the NBA title, wins the NBA Finals. Unbelievable job, unbelievable series. But I was very happy of that pick that I was able to pull off, especially on a very big stage like that. George Stice, I think I just got your alert that you signed up for the website, so I really appreciate that. And yes, I did create it myself. We worked very hard on that for about the past couple of weeks. We really went in deep into detail, and we've got some new stuff coming too. I said on this last video, new design, more content. It's going to be different. And I've got a good friend of mine, one of the best editors I think out there right now, and I'm not just saying this. My good friend Josh Pruitt. He is working very hard on kind of giving our channel a little bit of a new design, potentially a new intro, potentially a new logo, doing a phenomenal job. So I'm extremely excited for that. So I told you guys it was coming, and I'm going to be a man of my word. But Josh is phenomenal, one of the best in the business, in my opinion. And so that's going to be coming soon. So I did create the website myself, but I've got other people that have contributed to other aspects of the channel, and that's going to really benefit us down the road. What else we got here? Going through Emperor of Rome. Here we go. I love it. I love it. Every time, guys, that we do a live stream, the Emperor of Rome comes out here with some fact that I definitely didn't know. And here we go. It's been announced that 4 new sports will be added to the Olympics. What are your opinions on the sports they'll be adding? It is karate, skateboarding, competitive climbing, and surfing. So the Olympics going to be happening, next year? 2020, Summer Olympics? So we're a year out. My opinions on those, I don't think anybody responded to him, so I got to make sure. I mean, I love the random facts. I mean, he's like a damn encyclopedia, he's my own search engine here. So Emperor of Rome always bringing some good knowledge and some good facts to the table. Karate, I'm all for it. They have fencing, so why not have a little bit of karate in the mix? Skateboarding. You got the X Games that they have. I air those on ESPN, and that's extremely hard, guys. I mean, the skateboarding and the tricks they're able to do with that, the skills that they have, is tough. So I can see that being up there in the Olympics. Competitive climbing, I'm interested to see how that pans out. I don't know exactly how that's going to be judged, how that's going to be competitive. They're going to have a rock climbing wall. It's going to be a race to the top, or if it's going to be actually up the side of a mountain. I don't know how they're going to be able to do that, so that's going to be interesting. And then surfing, that is something that takes a lot of skill and balance there. Now, how they judge that, I'm not an expert on how they judge surfing, how they rate them or score that, but that will be very, very cool. So I'm excited to see how that plays out. So 4 new sports added to the Summer Olympics. You can never have too many. Olympics is one of the coolest things that they have. Every 4 years, kind of like the World Cup, something that everybody looks to, and everything, something that just brings the entire world together. We got football here in America. We got people overseas too that, of course, enjoy football. But that's kind of what brings America together is football. But the world comes together to support their country for the Olympics and for the World Cup and stuff like that. And that is really cool. It's something really special that like I said, doesn't happen very often. So it's really neat when it does. Street Fair. I saw your comment a couple times. I didn't want to miss you. What's your opinion on Jake Bentley? For those of you that don't know, Jake Bentley is the quarterback at South Carolina. Well, I'll tell you what, man. I think he is in the top half of SEC quarterbacks. I think he's in the top. He's certainly a veteran. I will say he's a veteran SEC quarterback and a veteran quarterback for his team. And unfortunately, man, I tell you what, I think this is a South Carolina team this year that, yeah, they lost some key pieces last year, don't get me wrong, but, they have the talent to really win some games, but the schedule is just absolutely brutal. So tough. I think they're playing Alabama and Texas A&M out of the West. They open the season against North Carolina, which they can win that game, but it's Matt Brown, new era. You never know what's going to be expected there. And then, of course, they have Clemson in the season finale. There's that rivalry game there. That's tough for South Carolina. I mean, they're playing Alabama and Clemson, the two teams that met in the national championship game. So I'm not writing that out off as immediate losses, but there could be two losses there. And you've got Georgia and Florida, Missouri, an up-and-coming Tennessee team. And the East is getting much more competitive now. For years, it was the West that everybody talked about. And I think the West is still more dominant than the East when it comes to them beating up on each other. Alabama, Auburn, LSU, Texas A&M. On occasion, a team like Arkansas, Ole Miss, or Mississippi State has a breakthrough year, and they're very competitive. But those that I listed, Bama, LSU, A&M, and Auburn, are usually the ones that are most consistent. But that's me talking more about South Carolina. But Jake Bentley, period, a very solid quarterback. And in South Carolina's success this year relies on Jake Bentley. I could see Carolina being in some very close games this year. With the tough schedule that they have, they've got to be able to win the close games, the ones that are going to be leading game-winning drives and decided by one possession, and Bentley could be the difference maker in that. And that's going to be key for South Carolina to have a veteran quarterback in that position to potentially lead a game-winning drive, to potentially, be the guy in the huddle that has been in a situation like that before. So, yes, I think he's going to be solid for the Gamecocks this year, but can the entire team pull it together when they're facing one of the toughest schedules in the entire nation? Let's see who else we got here. Comic dude, Rutgers better be in a bowl game or bowl game decent, or Chris Ash better get the, what he's going to say, out of Piscataway. Well, yes, you're right. I think you're exactly right. We were talking about that. We talk about that all the time. I love talking about some Rutgers football. They've got to get at least 5 wins. And that still might not be good enough for Chris Ash to save his job. I don't know if Rutgers can do that. I don't know if they can do that this year. And I saw some people talking about Sitkowski, Eli saying Sitkowski 4 touchdowns, 18 interceptions last year. I think he takes strides this year at quarterback. I think, last year he was a young guy, a horrible team. Growing pains, guys. We talk about growing pains all the time. So I think in year 2 he can make some strides. And comment, dude, you're saying 5 wins would be good enough. Pat Hobbs would keep him. Because right now we have to understand that Rutgers, in the state of the Big Ten, I know it is a horrible way to look at things, but is not in a position to fully compete at the level of Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Michigan State, guys like that. Makes us all a good point there that Rutgers also got McLean Carter from Texas Tech. And yes, Ryan, they did get clapped by Kansas, which was horrible considering how bad Kansas was last year as well. A team that lost to, I think, Nichols in week 1. But regardless, Rutgers is a team that I think should show improvement. But the Big Ten is tough. I think that they are the second best conference behind the SEC. They are certainly the second deepest conference, I think, behind the SEC. And so it's going to be very tough for a team like Rutgers to get 6 wins. They're going to have to win all their non-conference games and then win those potential toss-up games in the Big Ten. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. Munchie, it's good to have you back, man. It's been a while. But what do I think about Texas Tech and the Red Raiders? And I think I saw a comment earlier. You said talk about some Big 12 quarterbacks. We'll mix the two together. What do I think about Texas Tech? Well, I'll tell you what. They lose Cliff Kingsbury, as we know, taking the job for the Arizona Cardinals in the NFL. Bring in Matt Wells, who, comes over from Utah State and is going to implement a very different style of offense. But something that we have to keep in mind is I think everybody, when they did their research on Matt Wells, they looked at him and they said, oh, he's going to, come in here, and we're used to run the air raid. We're used to running Cliff Kingsbury, pass-happy offense, and Matt Wells is going to come in here, and he will slow it down. It's not going to be as up-tempo and fast as Texas Tech under Kingsbury, but he's still going to throw the ball. He produced solid quarterbacks at Utah State. He's still got one there in Jordan Love, who I think is one of the best quarterbacks, probably top 25 quarterbacks in the nation. Definitely one of the best in the group of 5. But new coaches are extremely tough, especially in a conference, as Comic Dude just said, took the words right out of my mouth, a conference with bad defenses. But if Matt Wells can implement a solid defense, especially in year 1, because he had solid defenses at Utah State, Texas Tech could get to bowl eligibility this year. Because they had the players in place, Munchie, to win the games on offense. They have the offense. And if you are in the Big 12, you have to have a good offense. If you don't, if you have an offense that struggles, well, you're in trouble. Because generally, as we said, defenses are bad. So that's why you have to have a good offense to take advantage, to exploit those bad defenses. Take advantage of that. Texas Tech has the pieces to do that. I'm going to assume who's going to be quarterback, right? Alan Bowman, right? I would assume. And so, I'm sitting here thinking about it. I think Texas Tech's cap is maybe 5-6 wins. He said we suck, but yeah, maybe we go bowling. Right, so you suck. Hence the reason you fire Cliff Kingsbury. A new coach, you expect to hit that stride in year 3 or year 4. I don't expect Texas Tech to win anything more than 6. If you're lucky, you'll get 6. But Matt Wells was one guy that when it first happened, I was extremely skeptical of. But as I did more research, as I've seen what he's trying to implement down in Lubbock, I see that maybe that wasn't a bad hire at all. But the key is that Texas Tech has to be patient with him. It's your second part of your question, Big 12 quarterbacks overall. Well, we know who the Kings are. We know we got Jalen Hurts over at Oklahoma, the transfer quarterback from Alabama. I go into a program under Lincoln Riley that has produced the past 2 Heisman Trophy winners in Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield. You go to Texas, you've got Sam Ehlinger, a guy that is extremely, I wouldn't say extremely, but has been, I think, underrated. People don't look at him as enough credit, but is one of the top quarterbacks in the nation, experienced quarterbacks in the nation. You've got, what's his name, Charlie Brewer down at Baylor, a guy that is underrated, and a Baylor team that is creeping up on people, guys. A team that some people could see being a dark horse Big 12 title contender. Wouldn't go that far, but Baylor could be the team that affects who plays in the Big 12 championship. Baylor is the team that could pull off an upset against an Iowa State, a Texas, or an Oklahoma and really shape the Big 12 standings and prevent maybe one of those teams from getting in. Iowa State, we're mentioning Brock Purdy, who wowed me last year. In his first year at quarterback for the Cyclones, expect him to take even bigger strides in year 2. I think he's already up in the top. There are 10 teams in the Big 12. I think he's in the top 5 of Big 12 quarterbacks. So the Big 12, once again, we're talking about all these quarterbacks, going to be solid on offense. Which team can step it up a little bit on defense? And can the Big 12 get back into the college football playoff? If people are really high on Texas this year, I'd potentially crash in the playoff and making their first appearance there. They got past Oklahoma last year, but couldn't get past Oklahoma in the Big 12 title game. Could it be the other way around this year, where maybe Texas falls to Oklahoma in the regular season, beats Oklahoma in the Big 12 title game, and it slips in there? A one-loss Texas team, especially with a win over LSU in Week 2, can get into the college football playoff. A one-loss Big 12 champion Texas team can get into the college football playoff. No doubt in my mind. But Texas' schedule isn't easy. Trap games against Baylor, trap games against Iowa State, and then you've got that game against LSU, which they're lucky to be hosting, and then, of course, the Red River Showdown against Oklahoma. So the path to the playoff, the path to the Big 12 title game, not easy at all for the Longhorns, especially a team that lost quite a bit across the board this past offseason. Munchie picking Oklahoma at 11-1. Not a bad pick. I'm not announcing mine yet, of course, but that's a fair assessment. I'd be shocked to see Oklahoma lose. I'd be obviously shocked to see them lose win less than 10 games. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're anywhere from 10 to 12. But like I said, the official picks and who they lose to will be coming out very, very soon. And George, I wish I could have shouted out my channel on ESPN. That would have been nice. That would have been pretty epic. Unfortunately, did not pay out that way or work out that way. I know some of you guys commented, you're like, "Oh, you should have, they should have had your name, the Gridiron Expert, there instead of, my name, of course, my actual name." But when I got there for that, I got there and they hooked me up. They put the earpiece in, hooked me up with the mic like right here. And the next thing I look over at the monitor, my name's there, and I was just taken aback because I didn't know what the heck was going on. The ladies that were helping me that were hooking up the microphones and hooking up the clip to my belt and everything, they said I was like a robot. They said I couldn't move. they had to like literally almost like pick me up as L's trying to read me these shot sheets right before we go on, explain to me what's going on. It was pretty wild. So I wish I could have shouted it out. Wish I could have said the actual channel name here. But hey, I'll take the experience over that any day. But yeah, it was pretty wild. Yeah, Street Fair, back on Jake Bentley. You were surprised how he threw for over 500 passing yards. He did, that's correct. And that was when I was somewhat critical last year of Clemson's defense. I was looking at that. I was like, guys, we're going into the ACC title game and the college football playoff. And, we just let up 500 yards passing to a South Carolina team that's not bad. Where they win 8 games last year. But they had some major holes to fill. They were about to go up against Ian Book and Notre Dame in the college football playoff, and then Tua in the national championship. So that defense had some adjustments to make. But yeah, so the fact that he was able to do that against one of the top, allegedly one of the top defenses in the nation, impressive. He needs to do that consistently though in conference play. Let's see if he can do that against Alabama. I think in week 3 they get to host that Williams-Brice Stadium. So. And I think the last time Alabama was there, the Gamecocks won, right? That was back in 2010, 2011, 35-21 was that score with South Carolina taking down the number 1 ranked Crimson Tide. And that was a down year for Alabama. That was the year they went, I think, 10-3, so 9-3 in the regular season when they win over Michigan State in the Capital One Bowl, I think it's what they used to be called. So that was a down year for them, but it started spiraling out of control with that loss to South Carolina. So can lightning strike twice? We'll wait and see. If Jake Bentley plays like he did against Clemson in last year's season finale, then maybe so. And you think, Street Fair, that South Carolina, let me see where to go, 7-5, I saw it somewhere, that you think they'll probably go 7-5. And that's a fair assessment. That'd be a very, very good schedule considering how tough that schedule is. If they can crack 7 wins and potentially go 8-5 with a win in a bowl game, consider that a phenomenal job well done by Will Muschamp, because that schedule is absolutely brutal. Let's see, what are some of the other comments here? George Stice, a couple comments here about Tate Martell in Miami. So you're just a fan of Tate Martell. So do I think he has solidified himself as the starting quarterback at Miami? And yeah, you do always ask the thoughts, but I don't care, man. I don't care about redundant questions. That's why we're here. And the beauty of live streams, guys, if you ask a question on this live stream, you ask a question on the live stream in a couple days from now or next week, whenever the next one is, we got a new crowd here. We've got new people here. I might have a new opinion if something has happened over the past couple days. So redundant questions, never apologize for that. Always good to talk about. If you watch SportsCenter or some of these ESPN shows, most of the stuff they talk about are fairly redundant. They just put a new spin on it. And they do it because it's a new audience every single day. So that's the beauty of it. But Tate Martell, George, let me tell you, I do think he is getting close to solidifying himself as the starting quarterback at Miami. He got a lot of hate, including from myself, from the poor performances during the Miami spring game and during some of the practices that Miami had. And it began to bring up some questions. Is he really going to be the starter? Like, could N'Kosi Perry take over? I think the other one was Jaron Williams. Could he take over as quarterback under Manny Diaz in his first year? And Manny Diaz wants to make sure he has his right quarterback in place, especially for week 1 when they go up against in-state rival Florida. Very big-time game. Week 0, August 24th. But I think he can solidify himself. I think he's the best quarterback on the roster. Let's put it that way, George. I think he's the best quarterback on the roster. I know Perry has had in-game experience. He played some last year, played some the year before, so I get it. I get he's got plenty of experience, but Tate Martell is the man for the Hurricanes. I know he had some bumps in the road, but like we were talking about earlier, spring games mean nothing. Now, that was not the greatest first impression for Tate Martell with a new head coaching staff and a fan base that is hungry for success, especially after being number 2 in the country just a few years ago. And I will say this, Miami has one of the most dedicated fan bases out there. They're cocky sometimes. They are cocky sometimes. They are very passionate, let's say that, but they have one of the best fan bases out there, no doubt in my mind. And so to have that first impression from a brand new quarterback, that's not good. But he's the best quarterback on the roster. I think he should win that starting job for Miami. He might face some very harsh criticism if he struggles against Florida, but we have to keep in mind that Florida should be a top 10 or probably a top 12 team when the season begins on August 24th for them. And they're going to have a solid defense once again. So if Tate Martell struggles out the gate, let's not all blame it on Tate Martell. Let's keep in mind it's a brand new coaching staff at Miami all the way across the board. And Florida is one of the top teams in the nation and one of the top teams in the SEC. Something to keep in mind there. Also keep in mind that Miami has added Dan Enos as an offensive coordinator, and he has done remarkable things with the quarterbacks wherever he has been, at Central Michigan, at Arkansas, at Alabama. So, the entire offseason, the entire summer to work with Tate Martell, you could see some big strides out of him pretty early on because he is like the quarterback whisperer. So, hope that answers your question, George. Always love talking a little bit about Tate Martell. And I am really curious to see how this experiment works out for Miami and Manny Diaz's first year. Eli, I never watch a urinating tree on YouTube. I have never seen that. Don't even know what the heck that is, but I might have to go check that out after this live stream. The name alone has me intrigued, let's say that. So, Street Fair, right there. Do you think that Florida is overrated? You think South Carolina can beat them at home, at South Carolina? Well, I just talked about Florida very briefly a second ago when we were talking about Tate Martell. I think Street Fair, they're one of the best in the SEC. I think that if any team will beat Georgia in the East, it will be Florida. I think that Dan Mullen has once again proved himself as one of the top coaches, and I'll take that back. Underrated coaches in the SEC. Let's think about that. What he's done at Mississippi State. He was offensive coordinator at Florida. In his first year with the Gators, he took over an abysmal offense. Finally found himself a quarterback in Felipe Franks, and I know he still gets hate, but has found himself an offense and found himself a quarterback, and then won 10 games in a New Year's Six Bowl in year one. I don't think they're overrated. I think they're actually going to improve or stay about the same. I don't think you're going to see a decline in the production and in the record of Florida. The schedule is tough, but anytime you're in the SEC, the schedule is going to be tough. That game against Georgia is going to be huge, not only because of the potential that it could have. I mean, it's a rivalry game. That's big enough in itself, but that game could very well decide who wins the SEC East. And I firmly believe that. Those are the top 2 competitors in the East by far. I don't think anybody's close enough to them, besides maybe Missouri could throw a little wrinkle in either one of their plans. But that's going to be the biggest game that could decide who wins the SEC East. I don't know if South Carolina can beat them at home. I haven't memorized either team's schedule. I'd like to see who Florida plays before and after South Carolina. I haven't looked at their schedule yet. If they catch them in the middle, if they catch them maybe after a after a Georgia loss, or catch them before the Georgia game, that could definitely be a big major trap game. I haven't looked at their schedule yet. But I don't know if I would say South Carolina can beat them at home yet, but I also didn't think that Missouri was going to beat Florida last year in the swamp. Didn't think Kentucky could beat Florida in the swamp. Dan Mullen, as high of praise as I've given him, has been prone to lose games he probably shouldn't. And so there's a very solid chance that could happen to maybe to South Carolina. What else we got here? Leslie Mines. What am I expecting from Tennessee this season? I am expecting bowl eligibility and major improvement from last year. Jeremy Pruitt is building something down in Knoxville. He is doing a phenomenal job there. And I truly believe they can win at least 6 games, maybe even 7. I think he was the right man for the job. Another, even though it wasn't very long, another coach from the coaching tree of Nick Saban, and we have seen how well they have done. Coaches like Jim McElwain and Jimbo Fisher and Mark D'Antonio, Kirby Smart. I mean, guys like that have done so well after learning under Nick Saban. Jeremy Pruitt is doing the same thing. So I think they can definitely go bowling, which would be an improvement from last year where they didn't go bowling. Let's see what else we got here. Yeah, Comic Dude, we were talking about that. I've revealed my name before, and I know your name, of course. Yeah, Brandon. So everybody knows. I think a lot of people by now know my name, my actual name, and a lot of us know each other's name in the chat, which is just it's a beautiful thing. It's like one big, happy college football family where a lot of us are under fake names here, or usernames. But hey, that's cool. That's cool. So yeah, not a big deal there. Let's see. All right, Munchie, I like this question. I like that question a lot. Do I have Washington, UCLA, or Oregon in the Pac-12? Out of those 3 teams? Ooh, hold on now. That's almost a trap question, though, because if I tell you that, you're going to know who I'm picking in the Pac-12. I'll say this. I'll give you a generic answer without trying to spoil anything. Although I will say our Pac-12 predictions are going to come out much earlier than they have in the past. But Washington gets to host Oregon this year. That is huge. That is huge. That is a game that could determine who plays in the Pac-12 championship game. That is a huge boost for the Huskies. Oregon right now, I think, has the best talent in the Pac-12. I know Washington's got Jacob Eason coming in at quarterback, which is huge, replacing Jake Browning. Oregon's got the best quarterback, though, in Justin Herbert. And they've got another great recruiting class. Mario Cristobal has built something there in a very short amount of time with the Ducks. UCLA, though, doing the same thing. A lot of key pieces returning this year. Finally found themselves a quarterback, something they struggled with last year. And, one thing, though, I would like to point out about UCLA, though, Chip Kelly, a phenomenal coach, what he did at Oregon was great. We know, I think he lost like 7 times at Oregon, got them to a national championship. I know they lost to Auburn and Cam Newton in that game, but still, nonetheless, struggled last year with the Bruins, but they're going to make some major strides forward. Problem is, I don't know if you saw, but Chip Kelly is having some issues with his team. There was a report that came out, I think it was an anonymous player that made a comment saying that Chip Kelly is a very, demanding is not the right word because demanding would be the wrong word. Coaches can be demanding. But they said it's almost like I'm trying to think, like a prison, like a dictatorship. They said there are probably about between 7 to 10 guys on the team that have Chip Kelly's phone number. He's the head coach of the team. I believe every player on that team should have their head coach's phone number for multiple reasons. But they said he just doesn't hear anybody out. He is just very, and there's nothing wrong. I'm not saying that, like I'm being soft here, that people need to, lighten up a little bit. Chip Kelly, coaches can be strict. Coaches can be demanding. Sometimes that's what makes a good coach. But Eli, another good point there, all the Eagles fans I know hate him, right, because he had issues with players in the NFL. So you're seeing a trend here. Something about Chip Kelly's personality or the way that he conducts his team didn't bode well in the NFL with the 49ers and the Eagles, and apparently it's not boding well with him here at UCLA. Now, I never heard of anything like this at Oregon during his time at Oregon. So either players are just getting softer, or Chip Kelly is getting a little more crueler, or people at Oregon never spoke out. I don't know. I don't think it's anything horrible. I don't think there's any huge scandal going on here, but there is, you need to have a decent relationship between your players and your coaches. And if there is not a good relationship with Chip Kelly and his players, that could be a detriment to the team in 2019. I don't expect that. We saw UCLA starting to make some strides forward, becoming a lot more competitive down the stretch last season. I expect that to carry over this year in 2019. UCLA should be able to get, I would say, 5 to 6 wins, maybe more. Chip Kelly's a guy that, like many coaches I have said before, is a guy you never want to count out. Even though this is not a deep team at UCLA, even though it's not a super talented team yet at UCLA, you do not want to count them out. And they're a team, kind of like I said with Baylor, that could play a major role in shaping how the Pac-12 shapes out, but is not going to be competing for a spot in the title game themselves. And Eli saying that everybody's sleeping on Stanford and that you actually have Stanford winning the Pac-12. You say UCLA sucks. Oregon got screwed by their schedule, which is true. I mentioned they had to go to Washington. But they also have to go to Stanford. And then Washington lost Jake Browning. But I'm not too concerned with Washington losing Jake Browning. Good points with Oregon, their schedule being tough, and UCLA struggling last year and probably not going to be super competitive this year in the sense that they're going to become a 8 or 9 win team. Washington losing Jake Browning, that hurts. He was a phenomenal quarterback. Jacob Eason's going to come in and do just fine. He would be doing extremely well at Georgia right now. Had he not gotten hurt against Appalachian State a couple years ago in week 1, I believe he would be quarterback of the Georgia Bulldogs right now. Jake Fromm came in, did a phenomenal job, and took over from there, and that's why Jacob Eason's in Washington right now, and I think he's going to do extremely well there. I really do. Munchie, another question. Do I like college basketball, or do I watch college basketball like you do football? I do watch college basketball not as religiously as I do football. Now, I will say this. College basketball is what gets me through probably the first 3 months of the year. January through March is amazing for college basketball just because, I mean, the national championship for college football ends in January. Then you've got, of course, the NFL that gets you to the Super Bowl in somewhere in February. And then when that happens, it's all basketball. College basketball gets you through about the first week of April. You got the NCAA tournament in March, national championships about first week in April, and then NBA carries you through till about June. And then you've got a little bit of a dead period there where you can kind of focus on the MLB. Of course, you've got hockey in there too. College baseball, yeah, that's fine. College baseball will end next week with the College World Series with Michigan. Let's add that. Michigan making a phenomenal run in that tournament. One of the last teams in the NCAA tournament for baseball. Now they are 2-0 in the College World Series, upsetting, Texas Tech, and now Florida State. So they have a solid chance of making the finals there. But I don't watch it as religiously as I do football, Munchie, but I do watch it quite a bit. And I do know a lot in that sense when it comes to that. I watch it a lot, but not enough to do a basketball segment, multiple basketball segments here on the Gridiron Expert. He asked why I thought you would lose to Buffalo. Yeah, you're right. I did predict that. I think I had that round of 32. I had Texas Tech losing to Buffalo. Well, why? Because Texas Tech, Munchie. Let me tell you what, phenomenal run. I was happy for you guys. I'm a huge fan of Chris Beard, the head coach, of course. You know that for the Red Raiders. Huge fan of him. Actually, coach. I live in Arkansas. And he coached at UALR, the University of Arkansas at Little Rock. Got them to the NCAA tournament, upset Purdue. That was really cool. His story, period, is amazing, and that's why I'm a huge fan of his. But I didn't picture Texas Tech, man, from what I had watched, that y'all didn't have the best of offenses when it came. Emperor of Rome, yes, please. Bring some more trivia. Let's get it. But Texas Tech, to me, didn't have the best of offenses when it came to basketball. They weren't one of those super high-scoring teams. They could do it, but it wasn't that great. Buffalo was. Buffalo was a team that could put up some big-time points. Now, I know that the difference of competition in their conference, the MAC versus the Big 12, is different. But I thought Texas Tech relies a lot on their defense. Buffalo's offense will be able to exploit that. They're going to win that game. It was a bold pick. I was trying to sprinkle a little bit of my own March Madness in there, and it didn't work out. And, of course, Texas Tech went all the way to the national championship before falling to Virginia. In a classic game, I should add. But Chris Beard, the right man for the job, he's got Texas Tech really on the up and up. They're going to continue to stay talented and competitive in the Big 12, and I'm probably not going to doubt them very much in the NCAA tournament for a while now. 28, AD, 28, Boomer Sooner, baby. Good to have you. If you're still on the line with us, glad to have you. Appreciate those comments that you've had on some previous videos. I'm glad you're able to join the live chat with us tonight. Trey Drew, will a group of 5 team ever make the college football playoff? We've talked about this before a handful of times. It's one of my favorite things to talk about, just the scenarios, hypotheticals, stuff like that. Well, I continue to say that a few years ago, I think it was 2016, Houston would have made the college football playoff. I have no doubt in my mind that Houston would have made the college football playoff had they finished the season undefeated, because that was the year that they opened the year with a win over Oklahoma in the season opener, and then they beat Louisville, who was like number 3 or number 5 in the country. But by that point, Houston was already irrelevant because they had lost to Navy and SMU. And the Navy loss contributed to the loss of SMU. That was, I think Houston and Tom Herman was still the coach at the time, knew if we want to go to the playoff, we've got to go undefeated. And when they lost to Navy, I think they shut down. And and as a result of that, they lost to SMU, a team they shouldn't have lost to. But I do believe that Houston would have made the playoff that year with a win over Oklahoma, with an American Athletic Conference title over probably Memphis or Central Florida. No, probably would have been Memphis, I think. Trying to think of that, who made it that year. But regardless, an AAC title and then the win over Louisville, they would have made the playoff. UCF, back-to-back undefeated seasons, didn't get into the playoff because they didn't play teams that were good like Oklahoma and Louisville, like Houston did. But a group of 5 team will make it, yes. You look back, though, I've been watching a bunch of old highlights lately, how good Boise State was, and they're still good, but how good Boise State was in the early 2010s, like 2010, 2011, and even before that, when they were like number 3, number 4 in the country, playing in Fiesta Bowls and stuff like that, and how good TCU was when they were, I think, were in the Mountain West before transferring over to the Big 12. Those were teams that were ranked like 2, 3 in the country at times, but couldn't get in under the BCS system. With this playoff system, it's going to be extremely tough for a group of 5 teams to get in there. That's why strength of schedule is such a big deal. That's why, and Houston has another phenomenal chance to do that this year. Talented wide receivers, De'Aaron King at quarterback, new coach Dana Holgorsen, and they play Oklahoma and Washington State. If they beat both of them, run the table, including an AAC title, maybe you can make a case for Houston slipping into the college football playoff. Maybe. And Trey, you're right. The AAC is easily the best group of 5 conference, without a doubt in my mind. People have talked about them being a Power 6, with the AAC being the 6th Power 5 conference, because as well as the AAC has been Houston and Memphis and Cincinnati and Central Florida. Not only have they succeeded in their conference, but they are beating Power 5 teams regularly. And that's why a lot of people think they're the best group of 5 conference, and why maybe you could see a transfer to the Power 5. But yes, no doubt in my mind on that. I think the group of 5 will make it soon. The question will be, who will it be and what's it going to take for them to get there? Could it be Central Florida at some point? Could it be Houston? Could it be Boise State? I'll have to wait to find out. But I think it's going to happen very, very soon. They just have to schedule the right opponents. And then maybe even hope that teams within their conference can do well to boost that strength of schedule. When Cincinnati, last year, I think game day finally went to Central Florida for that showdown against Cincinnati, who was a nationally ranked team. If you can get a team in the AAC or the Mountain West, whoever, to get nationally ranked, and then you beat that team, you're a nationally ranked team yourself, that helps your case a lot. So schedule well, and then hope some teams within your conference play well, and then you beat them too. Got a lot of comments here, trying to scroll through. Man, I am a little bit behind, so I'm sorry. I'll have to skip a few comments here, but let's see. Many major realistic expectations of the U. So of course Miami. A realistic expectation, man, is probably going to be Miami hitting bowl eligibility. No more than 8 wins. No more than 8. There are still so many questions surrounding Miami. It was a disappointing year last year. Now you've got a new head coach. Will the defense still be up at that high level that Manny Diaz had them at now that he's head coach? Will Tate Martell end up being as good as people have advertised him, even though he has struggled? A lot of questions. Another tough schedule. I think Miami fans would be extremely disappointed and shocked if I would be shocked if Manny Diaz cannot get them to a bowl game. But this is not a year that Miami is going to, win the division. It's going to compete against Clemson and be like they were a few years ago that they were number 2. So anywhere from 6 to 8, Matty Major. I think that is probably going to be your best bet realistically for Miami. But you will find out for sure when we do our predictions, which of course start next week, next Thursday. Do I see Miami losing to Florida? Yes, I do. Spoiler alert. I know. That's a spoiler for you guys. I could change before we do predictions, of course. But I do see that happening right now. I do see too many things going right for Florida. And I'm not going to say too many things going wrong for Miami, just too many things that remain to be answered for Miami. Florida has got a better foundation right now than Miami. And that's not the only reason that I would say Florida will beat Miami. But overall, I think Florida does win that game. But if they do not, if Miami pulls off that upset, then they absolutely made the right hire of Manny Diaz, and you can start talking about Miami becoming relevant in the ACC and nationally much quicker than anybody would have expected. If they pull off that upset over Florida, Miami's going to be the talk of the nation early on, especially because it's going to be in week 0, a week before everybody else starts play. What else we got here? Okay, here's our Emperor of Rome trivia. This is what I like to see here. He's got 3. And hold on, before I get to that. Yeah, Matty Major, absolutely, man. I appreciate the comment. I haven't even seen you on the live stream before, so thank you for joining us, man. If you have not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. We would really appreciate that. If not, continue to come back to the live streams and watch the videos. But we appreciate the question. Always love talking about Miami. I know we got a lot of people out there that are some huge Miami fans. As I said, one of the best fan bases, I think, in the country. So thank you for joining us, man. And I hope to see you again here soon, without a doubt. Lane White, Emperor of Rome. I didn't forget your trivia. I'm bringing it. I'm going to talk about it. Do I plan on doing a call-in type show in the future? It's extremely funny that you said that because we're working on that right now. I mentioned that on this video I posted earlier today. New features, a new video, the new design, and everything else. Yes, we do, actually. We plan on having a call-in show very, very, very soon. We're working out the logistics of that, trying to get everything in order. It's a little more difficult. I know it seems pretty simple. I know it seems, just pick up your phone, tell us your phone number. It's a little more complicated than that. But yes, in the very near future, and when I mean near future, I mean probably the next couple of weeks, we plan on having a call-in show. And I'm thrilled for that. Because the comments are great. Don't get me wrong. The comments are great. But to hear your voices and we can talk a little bit longer, you can actually ask a lengthy question and people listen, it'd be perfect. So call-in show, live call-in shows, it's going to happen. It's absolutely going to happen. And Lane White, yes, you're the resident Georgia Tech fan, so all good for that. Tef, I've never seen you before, but glad to have you. How much for the weekly picks? On the website, guys, for our expert picks, which I highly recommend you do, $30. $30 flat. $30 fee for over 150 spread picks. That gets you our spread picks for the entire season, and that includes bowl picks as well. So if you go over to our website, thegridironexpert.com, you can sign up for those, and I highly recommend you do it. I'm getting alerts as we're talking right now of people that are continuing to sign up for that. I've gotten a couple alerts already from you guys that are signing up for the newsletter right now as we speak. So, Tef, I appreciate that. Go sign up for it, man, before you forget. And I will continue to advertise it, but it's a low fee for a lot of spread picks, and I highly recommend that you take advantage of it. And Emperor of Rome is the resident Bama fan, even though there are multiple Bama fans on the channel. Comic Dude, you, of course, are the resident Rutgers fan because you are. I mean, that is going to be the case. Even if there were more Rutgers fans on this page, you would absolutely be the resident Rutgers fan, no doubt in my mind. All right, I need to get back to Emperor of Rome's trivia here. or just random facts of the day. Here we go. Back about the Olympics. So today's an Olympic day. I'm cool with that. The marathon event in the 1904 Summer Olympics was the worst event ever. It took place during a heat wave where the heat index was over 135 degrees. So let me tell you what, guys, I'm not much of a runner. I ran cross country my freshman year and stopped after that. So I can't even imagine running a marathon in 135 degree weather. I mean, heat index, I know, but over 100 degree weather. That would be absolutely miserable. The refs rode in cars that kicked up dust that got into the runners' lungs. Rocks on the road ripped apart their feet, and wild dogs attacked them. There were 32 runners, only 15 finished. The original winner cheated by riding in a car. He was later disqualified. The true winner of the event was given small doses of rat poison as an energy booster and had to be carried over the finish line. Well, good God, the 1904 Summer Olympics, the marathon event, sounds absolutely horrible. Wow. You guys, you will not probably have heard that anywhere else except right here on the Gridiron Expert live stream, courtesy of the Emperor of Rome. So, wow. That is so intriguing and so horrible that I think I'm going to have to go do some more research on that just to study up on that. That is unbelievable. So, wow, 1904 Summer Olympics marathon, worst event ever. And yeah, I don't know anything that it will beat that in the near future because that is horrible. And I know times have certainly changed since 1904, over 100 years since then, 115 years, but still. So Emperor of Rome, thank you for that. Thank you for that trivia and that fact that, of course, I would have heard about up until this point. So I'm gonna research that later on. That's horrible. Let's see what else here. Let's scroll through the rest of the comments here. Leslie, I saw your comment. What is my favorite broadcast team in college football? You think Jordan Rodgers is great. Joe Tessitore, Gary Danielson, Brad Nessler, of course. I am a huge fan. I've answered this question a couple of times, but I always like talking about it. I'm a huge fan of Joe Tessitore. He has made some of the games I have watched some of the best calls that I can remember. Huge fan of Joe Tess. A lot of fun. He's so energetic and he's passionate. You know, you get some commentators every now and then that are just kind of monotone. You can have an unbelievable play and they're just so monotone, not much emotion. And there's something to be said for not being biased, but these commentators for the most part are not biased towards a certain team that they are covering that day. Joe Tessitore does a phenomenal job, by far one of my favorites. And of course, I think we can all agree one of the best in the business is Gus Johnson. One of my favorite commentators, because like Joe Tessitore is so passionate and so exciting to hear. I mean, he makes some of the wildest plays just like 100 times better with his screams and his yelling and his the inflection in his voice. It's so much fun to listen to Gus. So you put Gus and Joe together, oh my God, that'd be like a dream duo. Of course, they're on separate networks, but I think that those are probably my two. CBS does a great job with Gary Danielson and Brad Nessler, but it's certainly not the same without Vern Lundquist, who I didn't think was phenomenal. Vern was one of those guys that at times would be monotone. I think Vern was one of those guys that did have bias, or he had a team that he wanted to win each week. And as a commentator, you shouldn't do that. It takes away from the game, going into it hoping that a certain team's going to win. But his voice, one of the best. He was one of the best in the business across the nation or across the board. CBS football, CBS basketball, the Masters, everything else. So, but my top two, just favorite commentators: Tessitore and Gus Johnson. Eli, I do play fantasy football. I do. Actually won my league last year, as I've mentioned, I think, a while back. Was able to land some very solid running backs. I had David Johnson. Somehow got David Johnson and Ezekiel Elliott, so my fellow drafters did not draft very well. But I do play that quite a bit. So if you ever need some fantasy advice, I can give you that too. Maybe I should offer that on our website as well. Let's see if I can get the comments going here. How many more we got? So Eli, I think George, you asked. Okay, George, my friend is an incoming freshman at Washington State and is on the football team. How do you think they will do in the Pac-12? And Eli saying that he thinks they will go 9-3 with 6-3 in the Pac-12. Well, I'll say this. Tef, it is thegridironexpert.com. Before I answer your question, George, so it's thegridironexpert.com. Tef, that is the website name. So go check it out. I appreciate that. And it's not. I know it would have been easier to have Gridiron Expert for some reason that domain was already taken. I need to get this thing trademarked, so and quickly, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. But thegridironexpert.com, just like our YouTube channel here. George, Washington State, bringing in another quarterback, and I think his name is Gage Gubrud, I believe. If I'm pronouncing that last name correctly. It's not Gubrud, or as I've heard somebody say once, but Gubrud coming in for Gardner Minshew. And Washington State does lose a handful of people, but I mentioned Dan Enos being a phenomenal quarterback whisperer. Mike Leach doing the same thing, and he's the head coach. His offenses have been so potent at Texas Tech and now at Washington State. It took them longer at Washington State, more so than Texas Tech. But you're saying 9-3, Eli. George, for your friend who's on the football team, he obviously has a better inside track for it than I do. He's there in the locker room. He's there talking to coaches and the players. He has a better feel. But Washington State was one game away from playing in the Pac-12 championship game, and had they beat Washington in the Apple Cup and won the Pac-12 title, maybe they could have won, or not won, but gotten into the college football playoff. They were number 8 at the time. The odds of that were slim. But had they not gotten screwed over against USC at the Coliseum and then won those games, there's a possibility that could have really, really worked out for the Cougars. But I think Washington State's, I would be shocked if they win less than 8. I think 8 wins is a very solid mark for them. It will be another good year for Washington State. They're not playoff caliber this year, in my opinion. New quarterback, replacing some key pieces. And after a devastating end to last year, even though they won the Alamo Bowl over Iowa State, I don't think that they're playoff caliber this year, especially with another deep Pac-12 class this year. Washington and Oregon being the kings, going to play a major role. Like I mentioned some other teams earlier, Washington State might not make the Pac-12 title game, but can play a major role of who does play in it. So we'll have to wait and find out how that plays out. And Trey, they still won't win the Apple Cup. They have done a very poor job of doing that in recent years. I think it's, I can't remember the last time that happened, to be honest, but they probably won't win it this year either, unfortunately. They probably will not. And I feel for Cougars fans that can't do that. Leslie Mines, how often do I stream? Haven't realized you were live at times. Love to hang out in the chat more. Leslie, we're glad to answer your questions. We are absolutely glad to answer your questions. Go Vols. So we got a Tennessee fan here. We don't have too many of those, so glad to have one here. You'll like our website, Leslie. That opening page is Neyland Stadium. So I'm sure you would love to check that out if you get the chance. But Leslie, we stream, I would say, at least twice a week. The dates and the times fluctuate. If you would like, this is me hyping myself up again, but go follow our Twitter at Gridiron Expert. There's no the, just at Gridiron Expert. I post there every time we are about to go live. I tell you what time we're going to do it, what we're going to talk about most of the time. Sometimes I don't, but I do give you an update ahead of time and tell you the exact time that we will go live. So if you follow us on our Twitter, you will know exactly when, the day and the time. If not, just continue to subscribe to us, turn on your post notifications, and you'll get an alert for that as well. But we loved having you. We loved having your questions. So next time we are live, we'd love to have you in the chat a little while longer. So thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you next time in the chat. Emperor of Rome, okay, I'm going to be honest. I don't know your name. You even sent me an email once. Emperor of Rome, and signed it, Emperor of Rome. So let's keep that in mind for a second. The email said the Emperor of Rome or just Emperor of Rome, and then it was signed Emperor. So I'm sorry, I actually don't know your name. I know Brandon's. I saw him on Twitter, and I know he's popped up a few times. His name's popped up a few times in here. But no, I don't know your name, Emperor. You have to let me know sometime, or sign your name at the bottom of the email. But no, it's all good. We still love having you. Tef, I don't know why the website's not showing up. I guess make sure. I don't know. I don't know what's popping up for you. If it's if you tell me what if you can tell me what the issue is, maybe we can fix it. www.thegridironexpert.com. No spaces. Maybe that's a key. No spaces there. But it should be popping up for you. If not, you can try hitting me with an email and at thegridironexpert@gmail.com, and I can try to help you out there. But or yeah, you go, George. You can even do that. Go through the link. Yeah, go check out our last video. Oh, there you go. You had spaces. Yeah, no spaces for anybody that's trying to check it out. No spaces in the URL for our website. Definitely don't check that out. Don't do that. It's very rare that you have spaces in a URL. But George, was Arkansas State my first college choice, or did you have a dream college that was unobtainable? All right, so and before I get to that, Jeremiah, I'm not going to forget that. Emperor of Rome, Jeremiah. Thank you for letting me know. This is what I like. Big happy family here. So now I know. Now I can keep that in mind and I'm getting to learn a lot of you guys' names. So if it's not already in your user. So good to meet you, Jeremiah, not Emperor of Rome, even though that's a much cooler name. But George, so it's a funny story about that, about the college choice. There was a small college here in Arkansas. It's called Lyon College, and it's part of the what is it? NAIC, I think is what it is. It's a conference. It's not even Division III. Like it's below that. Super small college in a super small town. But both of my parents went there, and that was a school that I thought would be a great fit for me in terms of its size, in terms of the opportunities that it could present there. I had gotten accepted. Everything was working out great. And then it kind of hit me that school was not going to allow me to obtain a broadcast degree. It was not going to allow me to obtain my career goals. As much as I loved the environment there, it was not going to be the best place. So I reopened my search. It's like a transfer portal. It's like I'm committed. And I was fully committed to go. And then I realized that, and I withdrew my name, and I opened back up. Arkansas State ended up being the best school for me and had the best programs for what I wanted to do. And the official title of what I'm working on is called Creative Media Production, with the emphasis being in, believe it or not, sportscasting, sports broadcast. So that's what we're going with. And that's why I chose Arkansas State. I did not choose, and I had intentions of staying in state. I live in Arkansas. And it's one of those things where I want to stay in state for a myriad of reasons that I won't dive into now. But I wanted to stay here. And the other schools that were surrounding me, the University of Arkansas Little Rock, the University of Central Arkansas, we have an Arkansas Tech, we have a Southern Arkansas. None of those interested me, and those were too close to home. I wanted to stay in state with also getting a little way from home, and Arkansas State provided that. Eli, yes, LOL, imagine if I had gone to Arkansas. Well, I can tell you what, I would have been miserable with their sports programs. I can tell you that, because they have been absolutely horrible, or they were absolutely horrible last year, and have been the past few years. But Arkansas State ended up being the best for me. It was good in terms of size. It was good in terms of opportunities. And as some of you guys do know, if you have kids, or if you have been to college, or if you're preparing to go to college, money plays a very big role. And financially, Arkansas State was the best in terms of the money they were going to be able to give me, because I briefly looked at the University of Arkansas, Eli, and I will tell you this: they give absolutely no money whatsoever. Absolutely none. I had friends that went there, or they were close to going there, and they had high ACT scores and getting scholarships from all these other schools. Fayetteville, the University of Arkansas, does not give any money. They're extremely stingy with their money. And I feel for the people that have to struggle to deal with that. Struggle to deal with that with college, period. College is just insanely expensive. And I feel for everybody that has to deal with that. It's very unfortunate compared to the cost that it was a while back, 20 years ago. PNW Splish or Splash, good to have you, man. Go Ducks, so go Oregon. Glad to have you. Never seen you on here before, so if you haven't, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, man. We would love to have you guys continue to hit that subscribe button for more college football content. And as we near the beginning of prediction season, you're not going to want to miss any of it. So that's even more reason to hit that subscribe button. But glad to have you. Eli, you're right. Arkansas does have a good baseball program, although they just got put out of the College World Series. They were the number 5 seed, number 5 team in the nation, and lost back-to-back games to Florida State and then Texas Tech, a team they blew a 3-0 lead to. Which, if you have followed Arkansas sports at all in any capacity, baseball, football, basketball, they are prone to doing that, jumping out to an early lead and, of course, always blowing it and losing. You know, Emperor of Rome, I am very shocked. You are correct. The Lyon College athletic teams are called the Scots. You are exactly right. That is the right college. If you pulled that off the top of your head, if you just knew that, I'm impressed. I'm impressed because not many people know where the heck that is or who the heck they are, and they just got a football team like 2 or 3 years ago. So Emperor of Rome, like I said, our own search engine, our own encyclopedia. So I'm impressed. That's a very impressive thing. So yes, they are the Lyon Scots, very rich heritage there, big on the Scottish heritage. They have a whole Scottish fest like every year, like in April or something like that. I went to it like once or twice. Like I said, both my parents went there, so of course I grew up around it a little bit. Very neat school, very nice campus, beautiful campus. Just ended up not being the place for me. But they are the Scots. I'm impressed. Okay, PNW, I see you. Change your name. That's all good. That's all good. Hey, you got to keep me informed of this stuff. You got to keep me informed if you're going to change your name on me. George Stice, which state do I think is the most competitive on high school football, excluding the Catholic powerhouses who recruit? So which state do I think is the most competitive on high school football? Oh, there's no doubt, George, it's Texas. Texas high school football is a different breed. It's unbelievable. The amount of money they put into their stadiums, the amount of money they put into their programs, whether or not they recruit or not, Texas is the most competitive of high school football than anybody else I've seen. I know that that California can be tough. I know Florida can be tough, but it's Texas by far. Some of their high school football stadiums are bigger and nicer than some of these smaller Division I college football teams, like you might find in the Sun Belt or the Conference USA. It's unbelievable. And comment, dude, you're making my point even better. Have you seen their stadiums? Jesus, they're huge. I mean, it's unbelievable. So Texas, by far the most competitive when it comes to high school football. They treat that like their national titles. I mean, that is like, it really just is unbelievable. The amount of passion, the amount of dedication, and the amount of work and the fan base and the money that goes into Texas high school football. Keep in mind the amount of colleges they have there. Division I schools, Texas A&M, TCU, Baylor, Houston, Rice, Texas State. It's unbelievable. SMU, it's unbelievable how much football is a big deal in Texas. It's a religion, as Tef would say. But high school football is absolutely a different breed. And high school coaches in Texas, if they continue to do well there, can end up becoming successful head football coaches. That's a story that's happening constantly. We see that a lot. The biggest one right now that I can think of is Chad Morris, who is now the head coach at Arkansas, but was a big-time high school football coach in Texas. Landed himself a job later on as offensive coordinator with Clemson, then head coach at SMU, and now head coach at Arkansas. So he worked his way up, but high school football in Texas can open the doors for a lot of people way down the road. In Texas, right, Trey, has a lot of FCS teams too. But Texas is an absolutely huge state. It's unbelievable. I mean, you go from city to city. You hear the big cities. You got Austin and Dallas and Houston and San Antonio, but they are scattered all across the board. So it's a very, very neat place and a very, very passionate place for football of any capacity. George, your cousins went to Allen in Texas, the biggest high school stadium. They probably did. And Allen is where Kyler Murray went. Right, correct. So powerhouse for talent, powerhouse for success, and a powerhouse when it comes to the size of their football stadiums. So I'm not surprised in the slightest by that. Okay, Emperor of Rome, I got that. We're about to start wrapping things up, guys. We're going for an hour and a half, our longest live stream to date. But I know that I think both of my sources here are probably running low on batteries here. But Emperor of Rome, the only reason I know about Lyon College is because it's the oldest independent college in Arkansas. Facts like that stick in my mind. So that's pretty interesting. And believe it or not, I didn't even know that. I was almost about to go to school there, and I didn't even know that they were the oldest independent college in Arkansas. So I'm still amazed with the amount of trivia and facts that you know. We need to get you on like Jeopardy or something. Maybe you can beat the next James, the guy that racked up over $2 million, an unbelievable Jeopardy run that even ESPN was covering. Everything's bigger than Texas, as Comic Dude would say. And Eli, are the Cowboys even Texas's team anymore? I feel like the Texans have surpassed them. No, I wouldn't go that far. Yeah, Trey agreeing there. No, Cowboys are still Texas's team. I don't know if they're America's team, as they like to continue to claim themselves, but no, I don't think they have been taken over by the Texans as Texas's team. Texans are still working on that. Although, in terms of relevancy, as Eli would say, the Texans have become, I think, more relevant than the Cowboys as of late. The Cowboys got to the playoffs this past year, gave the Rams a fight in the divisional round, but haven't made the NFC Championship since probably the 90s when they went on that run of 3 Super Bowls shortly after Jerry Jones took over as owner. So it's going to be a while for them to get back there, but they're slowly starting to put together the team. Big 3, Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, Mari Cooper, solid offensive line, and a defense that is very underrated, unlike how maybe the entire team could be overrated. So that's something to think about. Tef, our winning percentage last year, 76%. 76% winning percentage. So, and that's actually been that for the past 2 years. So we're hoping to improve on that this year. We never want to go below it. If we can stay at 76%, we're going to be happy, but we want to stay above it if possible. Comic Dude 45, you're going to sleep. Good to see you. We're going to end the live stream about right here, guys. We've been going for an hour and a half, one of our best live streams that we've ever had. But we were going to start wrapping it up anyways, so we'll probably go to sleep alongside you, or not alongside you, but we're going to go to sleep as well, Comic Dude 45. So, Tef, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for joining us. Sign up for that. Everybody else, sign up on the website. Ryan Bell, good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Mike Myrick, as always, go Noles. I appreciate you, man. I definitely appreciate that. Comic Dude 45, it was good having you guys. Emperor of Rome, Jeremiah, you have a good night, man. Thank you for joining us. Everybody else, thank you for joining us on this Tuesday night live stream. Check our Twitter, check YouTube for more updates on when we'll be live again. And like I said, a week from Thursday, predictions start up again, and we cannot wait to get started. So thank you guys. As always, check out us on Twitter. Check out the new website, thegridironexpert.com, and we'll see you back here on YouTube for another live stream very, very soon.